This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to Jun11 Sports Catastrophe Birthday Boy and the birthday boy for today. June the 11th is a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL. He played 16 years for the San Francisco 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs, sorry. He's Joe Cool, the comeback kid. What they called the GOAT. Until Tom Brady came along. He won a national championship at Notre Dame, which was weird. He started his career in San Francisco playing for 14 seasons, and then having a massive injury, and then going off to Kansas City for a few years and helped them out. He has a lot of highlights. His number 16 is retired by the Niners. He's part of the 75th anniversary team, the 100th anniversary team, one of the best clutch quarterbacks of all time, Joe Cool, Joe Montana, who came from New Eagle, Pennsylvania. He's now 66 years old. So Montana's family Italian-American, and he liked football and all that. A lot of college recruiters came to his high school on his final game, and Notre Dame got him. It was amazing and all that. So he went to Notre Dame, played in 1974. Montana was a top prospect, but under Notre Dame policy, freshmen were not allowed to play with or play on varsity. However, he would be back during his sophomore year and all that. Anyway, Dan Devine, who came in for Eric Parshikian, said that Montana would be his starter and all that. Montana was not the full-time starter, but he did what he could. And in one of the greatest comebacks ever, Air Force was up 30-10 on Notre Dame, but Montana came in the first quarter, threw 3 touchdowns, game over. Notre Dame won 31-30. Anyway, Montana would unfortunately separate his shoulder and could not compete. He did get a medical redshirt, meaning that he had one more year of eligibility, an extra year of eligibility. In the 77 season, he was third on the quarterback list behind Rusty Lish and Gary Voyasek. Montana did not compete in the first few games, but after Lish struggled for Notre Dame against Purdue, Verstreck came in and suffered a broken vertebrae, a broken clavicle, and a severe concussion. Basically, he was done for. So Devine thought Lish should play, but then he decided to put Montana in. Montana came in with 11 minutes left. Purdue was up 24-14. Guess what? Notre Dame wins 31-24. And then Devine said, screw it, Montana's my quarterback. And Notre Dame went on to win 9 straight after that. And Notre Dame shocked everyone by crushing Texas, who were headed into the Cotton Bowl as the number 1 team and a good threat to win the national championship. They win by a score of 38-10. Notre Dame goes 11-1, and they won the national title because, strange as it sounded, that was the January 2nd, 1978 was when things were crazy. That the top 4 teams ahead of Notre Dame actually all lost their bowl game. Thus, Notre Dame jumped in. Montana had his famous moment. January 1st, 1979, his last college game for Notre Dame. They went to the Cotton Bowl against Houston. Strange as it sounded, Dallas had some very frigid conditions. An ice storm had made it the worst storm in Dallas since 1949 at that time. Many people couldn't go to the Cotton Bowl because of the cold weather, and it was all that. It was like 0 Fahrenheit, mind you. Notre Dame was down 20-12 to start the second half. Montana was not in the starting lineup for the second half because he had hypothermia, because his body temperature took a massive dip and all that. Notre Dame staff gave him IVs covered with blankets, fed him chicken soup. The doctor did, because his 8-year-old daughter put it in his bag. Houston was up 34-12. Montana came back into the game and shockingly got the Irish to score 3 touchdowns in the last 8 minutes. With one coming with like no time left on the clock. Notre Dame shocked everyone by winning 35-34 over Houston. Montana would graduate from Notre Dame with a degree in business administration and marketing. So anyway, the San Francisco 49ers decided in the 3rd round to take this guy, 82nd overall. Montana was actually the 4th quarterback taken in the draft, behind Jack Thompson, who was a bust, Phil Simms, well, he won a couple of Super Bowls with the Giants, can't blame him, and Steve Fuller. Ooh, exactly. So Montana did okay. He would only throw 23 passes because he was not really the main guy in San Francisco for the first few years. That was Steve DeBerg. By midway through 1980, he became the starting quarterback, and famously in his first season as being the starter, December 7th, when the Niners were hosting New Orleans, who were winless at that time. The Saints were up 35-7 at halftime, and finally New Orleans was going to break their duck. But for strange reasons, they gave up 31 consecutive points. And, of course, Ray Washington scored the overtime field goal to win the game. The first time that Montana would have a 4th quarter comeback victory in the NFL. In his 16 seasons in the NFL, he did this 31 times, 26 as a Niner. The Niners did finish 6-10 that year, but, Montana did okay. And led the league in completion percentage. Strangely enough, 6-10 one year, and then the next year, the 81 season was when San Fran finally took the bull by the horns. It was amazing. The Niners were 13-3 at the end of this regular season. They would take on Dallas, and they were actually 3-point underdogs on home turf. Yes, that was the game with the catch, Montana to Clark, who really had to jump up and get the ball. But thanks to Clark's height and all that, Montana did not throw the ball out of bounds. Clark caught the ball for his signature. Montana did his job. He helped the Niners get to the Super Bowl 16, in which San Fran won 26-21. He was given the Super Bowl MVP award. All that. It made him the 2nd quarterback to win a college national championship and a Super Bowl. The only guy before him was Joe Namath. Remember, Montana was actually 1 day older than Namath at the first time of his Super Bowl. Anyway, San Fran would fail to make the playoffs the year after they won the Super Bowl. And there were rumors that San Francisco were going to trade Joe Montana because they missed the playoffs. They were going to trade him to Baltimore to get the number 1 overall pick, which probably was John Elway. But the Niners said, no, we need to trade a 1st-round pick to San Diego for Billy. Traded weeks before the draft. Montana paid his superiors back by helping the Niners win 10 games, win the NFC West, and then with a shocking comeback against the Detroit Lions with 1:23 left. The Niners went to the NFC title game and almost came back in that one. They were down 21-0 to Washington. He made it 21-21, but a last-second field goal by Mark Mosley ended up costing the Niners. But you can't hurt them. Anyway, the Niners, the 84 season, 15-1. They crushed it. The first team to get 15 wins. While the 72 Dolphins been in a 14-game regular season instead of 16. So anyway, the Niners were 15-1. Montana had an excellent season and all that. He helped dump off the Giants and the Bears to get to the Super Bowl final against Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. It was supposed to be one of the best quarterback duels of all time. Unfortunately, it was kind of one-sided as the Niners won 38-16 and Montana got his 2nd MVP award and 2nd ring. Montana in the 86 season had a terrible back injury. It was to a spinal disc in his lower back. Montana's doctors said that he should retire from the sport. But by November '86, he returned to the team. And in his first game back, he threw for 3 touchdown passes against the St. Louis Cardinals. Well, they were in St. Louis at the time, then went to Arizona a couple years later. Montana only appeared in 8 games that season. But he was given the Comeback Player of the Year award. Montana did his job. He looked pretty good in the '87 season. But shockingly, the San Francisco 49ers were taken out by Minnesota in the divisional round. Everyone thought San Fran was going to win their 3rd Super Bowl ring that year in the '87-'88 season. Didn't happen. And then shockingly, prior to the '87 season, Bill Walsh shockingly made a draft day deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get this guy named Steve Young. It was amazing. You got a guy play for a shitty team like Tampa. So Steve Young and Joe Montana would have a quarterback controversy. What else is new? Young had great performance and all that. There was controversy that Montana would have been traded. So anyway, with the Niners at 6-5, the Niners moved Steve Young out of the starting quarterback job, gave it to Montana, and he got them to a 4-1 mark the rest of the way and the NFC West. They went to Super Bowl 23 because of that. They took care of Minnesota and Chicago, shocking the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field and all that. And temperatures were at -8 Celsius. The Bears' defense was nothing. So the Niners would take on the Bengals in the Super Bowl in '89 in Miami, Super Bowl 23. Joe Montana was chasing the ball. The Bengals were up 16-13 with 3:20 left. Joe Montana called a timeout, and then he noticed something. He's like, "Hey, is that John Candy on the sidelines?" He was not named Joe Cool for nothing. So he helped Montana. So Montana helped Rice and John Taylor get some key plays, and John Taylor scored the winning touchdown. The Niners would go on to win 14 games in the '89-'90 season. Their 2 losses were only by 5 points. Montana was crushing it. He was the MVP of the NFL. And in Week 4 against the Eagles, he threw 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter in a famous win in Philadelphia. The Niners crushed the Vikings and Rams in the playoffs, got to Super Bowl 24, and beat the tar out of Denver 55-10. The most lopsided score in Super Bowl history, still to this day. In 1990, Montana looked good. He helped the Niners win 14 games, and can you smell dynasty? I think so. Anyway, Montana would throw a 6-touchdown game against the Falcons, who wanted to blitz him, but he threw 5 touchdown passes to Jerry Rice that game. So anyway, the Niners looked pretty good and all that. The only problem for the Niners is that the running game struggled and all that. The Niners were looking good to become the first NFL team to win 3 straight Super Bowls. All they had to do was take down the New York Giants in the NFC title game. And they knew that Phil Simms wasn't playing for the Giants that game. It was Jeff Hostetler. But for some odd reason, Jeff Hostetler and the Giants won the game 15-13 without the benefit of a touchdown. They had 5 field goals from Matt Barr, including one with no time left. The worst part was that Montana was sacked by Leonard Marshall, who was supposedly out of the play, but Leonard Marshall crawled on his hands and knees, got up, and hit Montana with a rocking hit. Fortunately, the Niners got the fumble back. But, Montana was really hurt. It was huge. His injury was terrible. In fact, it led to him missing the '91 season and all but the last game of the '92 season. So basically, he missed 31 of 32 games for the Niners. Thankfully, though, Steve Young was still good enough that the Niners didn't really need to worry about it. Montana came in and played the second half of the final game against the Lions. And he was good and all that. Montana would not play in the playoffs. He would be the third stringer in the NFC title game between the Niners and Cowboys, behind Steve Young and Steve Bono. So there was a controversy emerging because Montana was healthy and ready and all that. However, Steve Young proved his effectiveness. And Steve Young did not want to be the backup and all that. Unfortunately, Joe Montana knew his time was done for because of Steve Young's presence. So he decided to ask for a trade, and he got it. He got traded to Kansas City April 1993 and signed a 3-year, $10 million contract. Kansas City really needed a quarterback. They really didn't have one after Len Dawson. Steve DeBerg, who ironically played with the Niners at the same time as John Montana, was a decent guy for Kansas City at times. Kansas City would then, on June 9th, sign Marcus Allen to a free agency deal. It was amazing. Kansas City thought they hit the jackpot with Joe Montana and Marcus Allen. In fact, the Chiefs decided to do the West Coast offense in anticipation of Montana and Allen coming in. The Chiefs gave Montana a chance to wear 3 jerseys. His number 3 from Notre Dame, although that number was retired by the Chiefs for Jun11, their star kicker. But Jan said that he could wear number 3. Another was number 19, which wore youth football, and the third was number 16. Despite the fact that the Chiefs retired that for Len Dawson, but Len Dawson said, you know what, he can wear 16. Montana decided to honor Dawson and Sterling for their jerseys being retired and chose number 19. It was huge. Montana still got to the Pro Bowl. The Chiefs won their division for the first time in 22 years. And the Chiefs would take on the Steelers in the wild card game, in which Montana threw a late touchdown to send the game to overtime, and the Chiefs won in overtime. Then against the Houston Oilers, which was supposed to be Houston's coronation after so many years of heartbreak, Montana in the fourth quarter threw 3 touchdowns to give the Kansas City Chiefs the trip to the AFC title game against Buffalo instead of Houston. Kansas City got crushed 30-13 in Buffalo. Worst off, Montana got a concussion. But Montana was healthy for the 94 season, and there were a couple of memorable games. All that. Week 2, Montana got to play against the Niners in Kansas City, not in San Francisco. So Steve Young versus Joe Montana, Niners versus Chiefs. The Chiefs shocked everyone by winning 24-17. And then later in the year, on Monday Night Football, in a great duel between Elway and Montana in Denver, Kansas City won 31-28. And we can't forget Dan Dierdorf's comment, "Lord, you can take me now, I've seen it all." Fortunately, though, Kansas City, even though they won 9 games, got to the playoffs, but lost in the wild card to Dan Marino 27-17. Montana decided to retire in 1990 after the 95 season. Before the 95 season. Ironically, Kansas City's new starting quarterback was the guy Montana played with in San Francisco, Steve Bono. Joe Montana did the ceremony of coin toss during Super Bowl 30. And he helped invest in venture capital and hedge funds and all that. Montana, they called the Super Bowl 54, between the Niners and Chiefs, the Montana Bowl, because that's the 2 teams Montana played for. All that. He was known for his fourth quarter comeback victories, the catch included. So it was just amazing what Montana could do. Montana was one of the greatest players of all time. One of the best quarterbacks, but Tom Brady has beaten him to it. He still holds the most pass attempts in Super Bowl history without throwing an interception in his career. 122. And he's 4-0 in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady lost some Super Bowls. I know that for a fact. Montana 4-0 ties Terry Bradshaw for the most Super Bowl at quarterback without a loss. He finished 117-47 in games he started in his NFL career, which was amazing. 70 games above 500. 40,551 passing yards, 233 touchdowns, 139 interceptions. Not bad. In the playoffs, he was 16-7, over 5,700 yards passing, 45 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. Super Bowl wins in 82, 85, 89, and 90. His quarterback rating 127. He threw 11 touchdowns, no interceptions in the Super Bowl. He was still cool. Montana has been married 3 times. One to his hometown sweetheart, which he divorced 3 years later. He married someone in 81, but divorced in 84. And then he met Jennifer Wallace, an actress and model. So they have 4 children: Alexandra, Elizabeth, Nate, and Nick. Nate Montana was an undrafted free agent from West Virginia Wesleyan. After transferring from Notre Dame and the University of Montana, Nick Montana went from Tulane and the University of Washington. So he does his job in San Francisco. And yeah, Joe Montana, Joe Cool. Daddy Cool. I know. I don't know the song, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.